With platforms like Wix, Squarespace, and Shopify, does it make sense to learn how to code in 2020? Should you be investing your time learning how to become a web developer or a web designer? Or at this point, is it time to just move on to something different? That's what I want to talk about in this video. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. I'm Joel, the creator of pixandweb.com and this YouTube channel. And what I want to do now is share my thoughts on the landscape in terms of web design and web development in 2020, and in reality, moving forward for the next few years. Now, this video is going to be applicable towards people who are freelancers or anyone who's looking to work at an agency or a company or a larger firm. And the gist is, in 2020, there's a lot of competition. If you turn on the TV or if you're looking at anything online, you're often going to find that there's advertisements for Wix or there's advertisements for Squarespace or any other third-party platform that's offering the service of creating a website for pretty much just a few dollars. If you go on Wix, their starting price as of today is about $13 for just a personal website. And for their VIP platform, it's $39 a month. And Squarespace is about $12 a month for a personal website and goes up to $40 a month for their more advanced platform. And when it comes to e-commerce solutions, Shopify is one of the big names that you hear often. And they start at about $29 a month and go up to about $299 per month. Now, the thing about these platforms, the Wix, the Shopify, the Squarespace, they provide a valuable service and they make it very easy for somebody to create a website online in a relatively fast time frame. And if we're talking about $12, $13, or $29 a month in order to get a rock solid website, that's not a lot of money. That's attractive to a lot of people. And they offer a lot of templates, which means you really don't need a web designer or web developer when you're using those platforms to get started. And that's one of the points, to get started. But I'm going to touch on that in a few. What I want to talk about is the numbers, because I'm a numbers guy. I believe that no matter what, you got to go back to the data. You got to go back to the actual statistics and see what the market is doing today, what it did yesterday, and what it's projected to do in the future. Data is king. One website I like to use is W3Techs. They update their information on a monthly basis, and they provide a lot of information in terms of what coding languages are being used on the platforms, what CMSs are the most widely used options, and other information that you're going to find interesting. So these are the numbers. And I'm talking about with almost 2 billion websites online. These are the market share in terms of total websites and for CMSs. Now, Wix has a total market share of 1.3% of all websites used online. And when it comes to content management systems, they have a 2.3% total market share. So remember those numbers. 1.3% of all websites use Wix, and 2.3% of all websites using a CMS use Wix. Now, what about Squarespace? That's another big name that you hear often. Squarespace has a total website market share of 1.5%. And in the CMS market, they have a market share of 2.6%. Now, if you're building an e-commerce type website, Shopify is one of the bigger names. So what do their numbers look like? For overall market share, Shopify has 2.1% of all websites online. And when it comes to a content management system, they have a 3.7% total market share. So now let's add up the combined numbers of Wix, Squarespace, and Shopify. We have Wix at 1.3% and 2.3%. Remember, this is for total website usage and then for all the content management systems. Squarespace has 1.5% and 2.6%. And then Shopify has 2.1% and 3.7%. All right, so if we do our math here, we have a 4.9% of total website usage in terms of all the websites online are using either Wix, Squarespace, or Shopify. And in terms of all the CMSs, those three platforms have 8.6% total market share of all the CMSs. So these are the numbers. Again, that's for all websites online. 4.9% are using those three platforms. And of all CMSs used, 8.6% are using those platforms. And the reality is they're making a lot of money because you see the commercials online, you see the commercials on TV, you hear about commercials or advertisements left and right from these companies. So even with a just about 5% total website usage and about 8.6% of CMS usage, they're making money, and they wouldn't be investing money in advertising if there wasn't a future for web design and development or for websites in general. So looking at those numbers, that means a lot of people are not using those platforms. So what are they using? The answer is probably not going to surprise you. They're using WordPress. WordPress powers about 35.9% of all websites online. And we're talking about 35.9% of almost 2 billion websites that are online today. And of the CMS market, they have about 62.7% overall market share of the content management system market. And WordPress is not the only game in town. There's also Joomla and Drupal. Joomla has about 2.5% overall market share of all websites online and 4.4% of all CMSs used. Drupal has a 1.6% overall market share of all websites and 2.9% of all CMSs. Alright, so now let's add up those 6 platforms, the Wix, the Squarespace, the Shopify, the WordPress, Drupal, and Joomla. Let's see what those numbers come out to, because again, the math is important, the data is important. Alright, so we have WordPress, I'm going to do it this way, is at about 35.9 and 62.7. Joomla is at 2.5% and 4.4%. Shopify, which is third in total usage online, is at 2.1% and 3.7%. Drupal is next with 1.6% and 2.9%. Then we have Squarespace is at 1.5% and 2.6%. And Wix is at 1.3% and 2.3%. All right, so if we add those numbers up, what do we have? All right, so this is how it breaks down. When you add up the total of all 6 of those platforms, 45.3% are using one of these 6 platforms to create a website online. And in terms of all the CMSs out there, because there's actually a lot more, that number comes out to about 78.6% of the CMS market is using one of these 6 platforms. Now, what does this actually mean for coders, for developers, for programmers, people who like to create websites from scratch, or coders who like to build on top of a platform? That's where it gets interesting. No matter which platform you're using, there's ways for coders and developers to make money. And that's why in 2020 or beyond, it still makes sense to learn how to code. It still makes sense to learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript, jQuery, learn React, learn Angular, learn Vue, tackle some PHP, some Python, learn about MySQL, learn about Linux, or any other language that's suitable for web design and development. Even if the person is going to want to use a platform like Wix, Squarespace, or Shopify, Wix has a service called the Wix Arena where freelancers and developers can actually build upon the platform. And even Squarespace has the developer platform as well. And Shopify, they have the Shopify experts area where professionals who know how to work with Shopify can offer their services. But then we have WordPress, then we have Joomla, then we have Drupal. And that's where coders can actually make a lot of money because you can create themes, you can create plugins, you create modules, add-ons, features that can enhance the platform. And that's all done with code. Or you could just use those 3 platforms to provide full-featured, fully functional web design and development services. Because if you look at those numbers again, about 40% of all websites online are using either WordPress, Drupal, or Joomla. And out of all the CMSs being used, WordPress, Drupal, and Joomla account for about 70% total market share. And that's great news for developers and designers. But wait a minute, what if you don't want to use WordPress or Drupal or Joomla or Wix or Shopify or Squarespace? Then what's the verdict? Does it make sense at that point to still learn how to code? But then if you add up those numbers, it comes out to just a little bit under 55% are not using one of those platforms. That means that almost 55% of all websites online are not using one of these top 6 CMSs. And that opens up a world of opportunity if you want to be a coder. And these trends are not going to be changing anytime soon. these platforms will continue to make money, and they're going to continue advertising because there's a lot more money to be made out there. And that also means for you as the freelancer or the coder, there's still a lot of opportunity to make some money out there. And besides, what if you want to go work for Wix? What if you want to go work for Squarespace or Shopify? Even the company behind WordPress hires developers. That becomes another opportunity for you to make money as a coder. So the prospect of earning a living as a web developer is looking good because you can sell themes, you can sell plugins, you can create modules or add-ons. And even with the do-it-yourself platforms, there's ways for you to make money with those as well. But one thing I will say is one of the biggest challenges is you're going to have to make sure you know how to market your services. Whether that means going out there, talking to small businesses, talking to bloggers in your area, or getting crazy active online, trying to make sure your search engine optimized and your social media marketing skills are on point. You're going to have to find a way to market your services and get your name and your company out there. But all that being said, in 2020 and beyond, being a web developer is still a great endeavor. Alright, so hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, smash that notification icon, leave your comments down below, and I will see you in the next video. Happy coding.